When it comes to my collection, I primarily collect vintage, and I'd say that it's really difficult. And unless maybe at some point the Magnificent World of Toys wants to do like a top 10 Marasan, Bullmark, or vintage vinyl series, I felt like I could only really pick a few because I wanted to kind of pick things all across my sort of like collecting taste instead of picking top 10 Sofubi vinyl toys. So I kind of picked a few that symbolize that. This is my top 10 figures or top 10 things that I could come up with off the top of my head, and things that I have a little bit more interesting stories than I think. Like I just bought it, and it's something that I'm just trying to show off because it's more valuable or whatever. Something I don't talk about too often is my love of Transformers. I've loved the movie from '86. I love the cartoon, the toys. It's awesome, and I have a pretty vast collection of the masterpiece scale Transformer figures. But the thing I wanted to talk about that I love the most is my signed 1986 Transformers the movie poster, signed by most of the living cast. I think some might have passed away since I had originally started the project, but this is something that I've been working on over years, and I have a pretty big autograph collection that I've amassed over the years, but having all the actors sign one thing I think is pretty fun for me. So having this poster with the cast from the show and that were in the movie, and then the celebrities that were just in the movie, was really fun. This movie, like I said, was one of my favorites, and I think everything from the animation to the awesome soundtrack, it's like a perfect movie for me. And then, you know, obviously crying when Optimus Prime passes away was a pretty big tragedy for me as a kid. I've spoken about it before, is that I actually have a seat in a movie theater that says that this movie is one of my favorites, and it has a plate that's actually engraved with my name and saying the 1986 movie is one of my favorites. I think really the only two signatures I'm missing, and then if anybody knows these people, I will do whatever, is I need an autograph for Corey Burton and Eric Idle, and that'll pretty much complete all the living cast from the movie onto my poster. So next on my top 10 would be the giant-sized M1 Conagon. This was something that, you know, I really feel like is like a legendary piece. It's incredible. Every time I see one, even though I have one, I'm astounded by how awesome it is. And hopefully one day Yuji from M1 will tell everybody how this awesome piece came to fruition, but it's not really my story to tell. But anyway, this piece came to me out of the collection of Coop, the amazing artist. He was awesome and had an incredible toy collection, and over the years I'd let him know that I really wanted one. And whenever I would kind of see photos of his collection or maybe somebody interviewing him, I'd always see it in the background, and I really looked at it as like he was a guy who had attained this incredible point with his success and could afford the best toys out there. And I had let him know that I was really interested in if he ever wanted to sell it, and one day he hit me up and did. He actually told me that he had purchased it. I don't know if everybody knows of the Mandrake stores in Japan, but there actually was a Mandrake in Southern California. But anyway, they had a store there. I'd visited a few times, but they never had anything like a giant Conagon there. But he had told me that's where he had bought it from. And so I thought that was really cool. Over the years, him and I had become friendlier and just chit-chatted about it. And luckily I was able to buy a couple posters of his that I was looking for from him during this time. But that's how I got the Conagon. And because it kind of added to me that it was his, I actually had him sign the bottom of the foot of one of the feet, and then I had Yuji sign the other one. How kids used to back in the day, they'd sign the bottoms of their Bullmark or Marasan toys' feet. One of the items I had in my top 10 is really a collection of things, and I think in this I'm trying to jam as much stuff into my top 10 as possible, and that's the Yokai Nito collection. I think all of us as collectors sort of become fascinated with like completing collections at a certain point. And some of these collections get so deep with how many figures there are, it might be impossible to. And when I discovered for the Yokai Nido collection that there was only 5 figures, that to me was an attainable goal. And when I was collecting them, they weren't as expensive as they are today. I don't want to ever say it was easy to get all of them, but it wasn't like collecting a full Marusan or Bullmark collection or anything like that, because there's way more figures within them than the actual Yokai series. And so over time I was able to get all 5 figures, and I love them. And it's a combination of like, I love the figures and how they're sculpted and their designs and everything, but I also love the movie this version of the characters spawned out of, which is the Yokai Spook Warfare movie. And you know, and obviously I love the lore in general with all the yokai characters, from the comics from Shigeru Mizuki to the actual passed down like ancient folklore stories around the yokai. And so this series for me kind of like embodies all of them. And I guess luckily for people that are interested in the yokai toys, they're not the same and they're much smaller, but Tomy many years ago did a candy toy version of all the yokai in this sort of like Sofubi style. And those are all relatively easy to get, except for 3 of them that came out as a con exclusive. Something that I really love is sort of like super deformed kind of like celebrity caricature figures. I have this Charles Bronson figure that I feel like looks like a little like my dad, and I think that's why I'm fascinated by it, but that's not really what I wanted to add to my top 10, but it's something that I just wanted to bring up because that's a figure I love as well. But specifically, there's like a 3 samurai set that came out a while ago. They're not the most expensive figures, but they're actually kind of hard to find, especially as a set. But there's something really magical about the deformed sort of like sculpts that they do for these figures. And it's this 3 figure set, part of the JD Gecko Hero series by Daimaru Shoji. And it's the characters of Yojimbo, Zatoichi, and Lone Wolf, and his cub, of course. It's specifically like the sculpts of the actors Toshiro Mifune for Yojimbo and Shintaro Katsu for Zatoichi, and Tomi Saburo Wakayama in Lone Wolf and Cub. Like, the way they're sculpted is so cool, and the way that they sculpted his son is so different than how they sculpted the actual figures. I think it's really funny, and I couldn't imagine how they art directed the sculptor of that to sculpt the child, the cub, in such a completely different style. I don't think a lot of people are aware of, but I think a lot of people would think are pretty cool for those 3 specific characters. So with Creature Bazaar, we've been really lucky to do a ton of collaborations with Japanese toy maker Zulman, who has really incredible sculpts and incredible range of toys. So my favorite toy from Zulman that I've selected for my top 10 is one that we never got to get to as far as making Creature Bazaar colorways and collaborations, and it's the Demi King. One of the things is when it comes to my collecting, I really love media, movies, and like the nostalgia that's associated with the figures. But with this, it has nothing to do with any of that. I just really love the sculpt and how he engineered it, because although this figure does come from a manga and a movie, none of those is why I love this toy so much. It's like the sculpt is just perfect. And because it's a hybrid of the Tsuburaya characters of Namagon and Bolton in one, and just how the ball joint in the neck works, you know, up until the point when I first discovered this toy, I'd never seen a soft vinyl toy that really used the ball joint in this way, and I just thought there was something really impressive about it. Combined with the way it was sculpted, I just thought it was so cool, and that's why this toy was something that just continually fascinated me until I got one. And you know, I guess there was just the level of the fact that he's also a real cutie. That's why I really love this toy. If I had to pick like one Bullmark or Marathon toy I love the most, it probably would be the Quang. There's something about the lore behind that particular character, the way he's designed, the movie itself I think is fantastic, and you know, the fact that without Quang there would actually be no Mechagodzilla. I think that's something that that sort of fascinated me when I would talk to Akihiko Iguchi, the guy who created Mechagodzilla. He would bring up all the time that he didn't really invent anything, that Quang had already existed, and that he was just taking that particular idea and shifting it into doing a mechanized Godzilla. I thought was always really interesting, because, you know, between the two, I mean, Mechagodzilla is a giant. And so there was something about Quang in particular that always amazed and intrigued me, and I think he's just a really beautiful toy, and that's why he's part of my top 10. So for a top 10 for me, you know, it wouldn't be a true top 10 for me if I didn't include anything from TMNT. And at this point I have so much turtle stuff that outside of the NECA turtle line, I don't really get as much stuff unless I worked on it. The thing that I'm actually collecting the most of that's turtles are turtle bootlegs from other countries. And I was recently at a toy show with Trevor Zammit and Aaron Hazuri, my turtle bros, when it comes to sitting around and talking about all the crazy Ninja Turtle stuff that's out there. And we went to this vintage toy show where we actually happened to run into Tiki Ranch Randy, and he had this insane turtle toy that none of us had ever seen before. And because none of us had planned to even meet at this show, and we found this really cool thing that Randy had, I took it kind of as a sign that it's something that I just stepped up to the plate and just felt like I had to happen. And it was just really beautiful. And if you look at it and how it's made, it's pretty incredible, because it was made to be this toy on a horse. And there's just something magical about how it's colored, how the pegs work and how they're all visible, and how there's no regard to scaling in terms of a turtle riding a horse, which I thought was really funny. So next up in my top 10 is, I wanted to talk about some of my original art, because I've got a pretty big original art collection. And this piece, it's one of my favorites, but not maybe my true favorite, but it also has a better story than some of the other ones where I literally just walked up and bought a piece of art. And that is my Bruce Timm Rocketeer piece. I guess I consider myself a pretty big Bruce Timm collector. I have a lot of original drawings that I've gotten from him over the years at San Diego Comic-Con. And this goes back, I don't even know, 10, 12, 15, I don't even know how many years I've been buying original sketches from him and drawings. And I also collect the DC Direct Bruce Timm figures, and I think I have every single one, and I like to pose them all together. But one year at San Diego Comic-Con, I was cruising around and I went up to the Albert Moy booth, and I saw this really awesome piece of art of pencil sketches of the Rocketeer that Bruce had done onto his All-Star Superman script. And he had a few of them there, but this one specific was amazing. I loved it, and I just needed to make a little bit of money to pay for it. And so I told Albert and his son that I really loved the piece and I'm gonna be back very soon to get it. I just needed to sell a few things to make some money. And I went, sold some things, came back, and it was sold. I was an idiot. I should have bought it then there. I just felt like I needed to make some cash before I made a purchase like that. And Logan, Albert's son, had informed me that it was gone. And I went back bummed and kind of left my mind. And it wasn't until Christmas of that year that I found out who actually bought the piece that Logan neglected to tell me was my girlfriend. She had actually bought the piece knowing that it was something that I was really into because I love the Rocketeer and Bruce Timm, and I thought it was really funny that it was on his All-Star Superman script, that I really wanted it, and I thought it was a great compliment to my collection. And so she bought it for me and gave it to me for Christmas that year, which makes it from being like the perfect pencil piece for me to being an even better, more memorable one because my girlfriend, now fiance, had bought it for me. So anybody that knows me knows of my love for Harryhausen movies, and specifically his character of the Cyclops. And anybody that's hung around me long enough has heard me tell my silly story about going to San Diego Comic-Con and meeting Harryhausen and Ray Bradbury there, and them inviting me to a screening of Clash of the Titans. And all that being said is that there's no shortage of Harryhausen Cyclops artifacts within my home, and I'd been spending close to 10 years looking for this one toy, which is the Beagle Cyclops, which is a giant, over 50 centimeter tall statue. And to me, this is sort of the closest representation of him that kind of looks like what was in the movie, because most of the toys, sculptures, things that people make look kind of like how he did in the movie, but it's sort of like an artist's interpretation. Where for me, because of the fuzzy legs and the way that his spike club worked, which is insanely sharp, it's probably the most dangerous thing in my house, how sharp the club is. As far as merchandise, the closest I can say to anything else, any merchandise that's out there. And recently I ran into the sales manager of Beagle at the time of the release of this, and he just happened to have his sample and was looking to get rid of it, and luckily I was there to be the one to pick it up from him. One of the most perfect toys to me is the M1 Matango, which is weird because I guess it's supposed to be kind of a modern toy, but the toy's over 20 years old at this point now, but they still come out with releases of them. But in the soft vinyl toy scene, it's one of those things that a lot of us collect, like color variations of the same sculpt but in different colorways, which isn't something that I do that often, except for this particular sculpt, because I think it's truly one of the best. I think I have every single one that's ever come out, including blank, which is kind of incredible, but there's just something about this toy that I think is so charming to me that like other sort of like retro modern soft vinyl toys don't really do. But it's not only just about the figure. This really is probably my favorite Toho movie, which is kind of insane because it doesn't have Godzilla. And it could be because I'm a Gilligan's Island fan and a huge fan of the movie The Thing, and Matangos is like the right hybrid of both of those movies combined. So I don't know, maybe that's that. That was my top 10. You know, I'm sure I have top 10s of a lot of different things, whether it's original art, soft vinyl toys, you know, modern toys, vintage toys, whatever. So if you want to see more top 10s from me or whatever, just bug Roger about it and maybe he'll get on it.
Show's over. Come back tomorrow.